This year's event was round 3 of the SA Off-Road Championship presented by Bankfin, ABSA's specialist vehicle and asset finance division. 75 of the 78 crews entered for the Toyota 1000 survived the prologue and were busy with last-minute preparations for the 8 o'clock start and the long dusty haul to the overnight stop in Manswabishi. De Villiers and Jordan had almost 9 minutes in hand over teammates Grobler and Leek, with the rest of the field more than an hour behind. 5th place Moore and Werner were the leading special vehicle contenders. It was a chilly pre-dawn start for the surviving crews who camped overnight at Manswabishi.
I'm awake now. Leave me.
As always, there were last-minute preparations before the teams headed back to Gaborone. For some, like the Toyota crew, who had to repair Reineker's Castrol Toyota, there had been little rest during the night.
The Toyota 1000 Desert Race has become a very important event. In fact, it's an annual event which everybody looks forward to. It also brings a lot of people, and in my view, the more people visit Botswana, the more they know about Botswana and see what's happening, what type of people live here, and the friendly people that live in Botswana. So yes, to us it's very important.
35 of the 75 starters survived the first day with De Villiers and Jordan, the crew to beat.
Well, yeah, when it was the first time that I actually did the top loop, because I've never got this far so far. But I must say I prefer the top loop. It's a lot more open and fast, and it's a lot nicer for driving, whereas the first one is a bit tight, and first, second gear a lot, which obviously, I mean, as a racing driver, you don't like that too much, but definitely the top loop for me. But in general, it was a good loops, both of them, and I think it's a good test for man and machine.
Thousands of fans made the annual pilgrimage to Manswabishi, with all-night partying part of the tradition. De Villiers and Jordan were on a mission to win. They hadn't won since August 2002 and had yet to finish a Toyota 1000 Desert Race. But disaster was only seconds away. A motorist had strayed onto the race route and the two vehicles collided at high speed. The proudly South African Nissan hardbody was extensively damaged and De Villiers injured his left arm. Teammates Grobler and Leek adopted a somewhat more cautious approach at the start.
We're straight on this road for 5Ks.
De Villiers limped back to the pits for repairs to the Nissan. Haasbroek and Schippers suddenly found themselves in second place, but almost an hour behind the leading Nissan. The Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser failed to finish the first two events of the season and had been totally rebuilt for the Toyota 1000 Desert Race. The rest of the field left at 15-second intervals, and dust and poor visibility would be a major problem. With the Shell Connex Chenoweth still plagued by engine blow-by problems, special vehicle category leaders Moore and Werner would have to take things easy. Birkin led on day one until a puncture dropped into second, and he would no doubt take advantage of the leader's problems on the run back to Gaborone. Schroeder and Peckham were confident that the Team Ford Racing Ranger had what was needed to win and set off in hot pursuit of Class E leaders Cronje and Birkin. Taylor and de Chalane would have to pull out all the stops if they hoped to beat Class B leader Andrew Birkin. Labuschagne and Gerber had a faultless run on day one and were the leading GBS Racing Nissan entry in Class D. They were followed by the oil-guzzling Atlas Copco Chicago pneumatic Jeep of Scott Abraham and Richard Carolyn.
Stand. Face around the anti-roll button. To the close. 500 meters up.
Damage to the proudly South African Nissan hardbody was extensive, and it would take technicians 1.5 hours to repair.
Well, I mean, it's just crazy. We went up the road and there was a guy coming from the front at about bloody 140 k's an hour. So, I mean, what can you do? And we in the sandy track coming around the corner, and it's just very disappointing because I think they should certainly make an effort to ensure the safety of everybody concerned, and it's something that should not happen. Definitely not.
I'm not going to go too fast. No. You've got 45 minutes lead. You lose 15 minutes, so what?
Okay.
What do they say? You're going to win by 1 second.
Yes. Right. Can you leave
No,
it?
you drive with,
leave it.
as you're happy.
Yeah.
Krobler and Leek had a comfortable lead, so could afford to ease their pace in the proudly South African Nissan hardbody. Special vehicle leaders Moore and Werner were second overall in the Shell Connex Chenoweth, but were being hunted down by Weir Smith and Minute. Api Reiniger and Robin Houghton's Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser was in good shape after being repaired overnight. The pair started 28th and was forced to pass 24 competitors as they worked their way back to 4th overall and second in the production vehicle category. Marius Mfirin and Chris Murray in the Albaronte Land Rover were next to fall victim to the charging Reiniger. Another 2 down and many more to go. The Land Rover of James Alexander and Julian Penstone from Zimbabwe was a pushover. And so too was the GBS Racing Nissan of MC Coetzee and Marius Liebenberg. Yuri and Andre Duplessis presented no problem whatsoever, and neither did Harry Smith-based Johan and Martinez van der Merwe in the Chobani Colt Rodeo. But Alfie Cox and stand-in co-driver Mike Griffith needed some encouragement. Hill Nell was next to go, but JP and Linda Augustin in the GBS Racing Nissan proved to be somewhat more difficult to pass at speed. With the Atlas Copco Chicago pneumatic Jeep out of the way, Reiniger and Houghton were now 10th overall on the road, but the gearbox on the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser was starting to play up. Mark Ronnier and Chris Birkin were 3rd overall in the production vehicle category and led Class E from Manfred Schroeder and Jack Peckham. The near-standard Castrol Toyota Hilux 2.7i hadn't missed a beat all weekend. Class A championship leaders Mandel and Bond were 3rd overall in the Prolong Bat and the last remaining Class A contenders. Shumi van Vuren, with Carlos de Abreu back on board, was in fine form and the Class D leader in the Chibuku Toyota Land Cruiser after Haasbroek and Schippers damaged the front suspension of the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser. Andrew Birkin in the nimble Wingfoot left his Class B rivals trailing in his dust and had a 15-minute lead over KZN crew Clint Gibson and Mike Brown, who were having a steady run in the neatly turned out Presidium Bat, and Francois Smit in the single-seater Frantic. Hein Grobler and Gerard Prinsloo were on the charge despite having no clutch on the Class D GBS Racing Nissan and were being chased by Alfie Cox and Mike Griffith in the Arnold Chats Cars Nissan hardbody, who started 21st. Scott Abraham and Richard Carolyn were forced to nurse the oil-guzzling Atlas Copco Chicago pneumatic Jeep to the finish and had to be content with 6th overall in the production vehicle category. Manfred Schroeder and Jack Peckham's Class E Team Ford Racing Ranger was down on power due to contaminated diesel. They were forced to slow their pace and couldn't mount a challenge on class leaders Cronje and Birkin. Hill Nell had a troubled run in the Look Africa Truggy and would retire only the 3rd time in 5 years of racing. It would also be the first time he failed to complete the Toyota 1000. Zimbabwean crew James Alexander and Julian Penston had a solid run in the Land Rover and would eventually finish 10th in the production vehicle category and 5th in Class D. Zane Pierce and Henny Vosloo survived a roll on day one in the high Q Ford Ranger, and in only their second off-road race were running a fine third in Class E, while father and son Cliff and Louis Weichelt had a successful debut in their new N1 4x4 Toyota Land Cruiser station wagon in an extremely tough event. Class F contenders Jaap Zeeman and Johannes Bauwise and the 24-year-old DFS Ferrobrake Ford Cortina Bakkie were 18th overall and the Class F leaders, while Dion Skuman and stand-in co-driver Jeremy Fall had powered their top car Ferrari Nissan hardbody to 19th overall in the production vehicle category. And Andre Duplessis survived a collision with Nick Goslar and Glenn Steyn on day one and were fourth in Class E in the BB Auto Nissan hardbody. Gavin Gray and Brian Scott managed to repair the suspension damage on the Data.Raceco but were time barred at the designated service point. Brothers Mark and Stuart Moffat finished 11th in the production vehicle category and 6th in Class D in the Albaranti Land Rover. Wolf Peter Fulfi, designer and builder of Birkin's Wingfoot, had a storming drive to pick up second in Class B in the WPP, another of his creations. Juan and Martinez van der Merwe had power steering problems on the Class D championship leading Chobani Cold Rodeo and had to settle for fourth in class on the Toyota 1000 Desert Race. Van der Merwe Sr. complained afterwards that the twisty, sandy conditions were particularly tough on man and machine. Andre Buerta and Beans Heidenreich had their hopes of a Class F win dashed when the starter on the O'Hagan's Kopenhagen Hotel Super Team Chev failed. Haasbroek and Schippers broke a front shock absorber and a rear leaf spring on the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser and were forced to slow their pace dramatically, while JP and Linda Augustine had electrical problems on the GPS Racing Nissan hardbody and was time barred at the midway point. It just wasn't Andrew and Janet Fulton's day. They were on their way to a strong finish when the gearbox failed on the Sandmaster. De Villiers and Jordan were on a charge and fourth overall on corrected time after starting stone last after their scary accident shortly after the restart. Hannes Grobler and Richard Leek had eased their pace dramatically but still had more than an hour in hand over second place. Barring any unforeseen problems, the proudly South African Nissan crew looked to have their race and their sixth consecutive win in the bag. Weir Smith and Minute started 16th, got the better of Moore and Werner, and now had a comfortable lead in the special vehicle category. Reynecker and Houghton continued their charge from 28th position at the restart and were second overall in the production vehicle category despite gearbox problems. Moore and Werner had slowed their pace and settled into second overall in the special vehicle category but had Cronje and Birkin bearing down on them in the Class E leading Castrol Toyota Hilux 2.7i. Prolong Bad crew Mandel and Bond held down third place in the special vehicle category. Von Vieren and Arbru had matters in control in Class D, but they were being relentlessly stalked by GBS racing pair Grobler and Prinsloo in the Nissan hardbody. Cox and Griffith in the Arnold Schatz Cars Nissan had worked their way from 21st to 9th on the road, but would later retire with a blown motor. Class B leader Francois Smit put on a polished performance to round out the top 10. With 300 kilometers to go, Grobler and Leek were the overall production vehicle category and Class T leaders in the proudly South African Nissan hardbody. O'Hagan's Kopenhagen Hotel Super Team pair John Weir Smith and Jeff Minute were second on the road and the special vehicle and Class A leaders. Giant killers Cronje and Birkin were fifth on the road, third in the production vehicle category and first in Class E. Local favourites Von Vieren and Arbru were seventh on the road, fourth in the production vehicle category and the Class D leaders, while Francois Smit in the Frannic held down 10th place on the road and the Class B lead. With 250 kilometers of the Toyota 1000 to go, Grobler & Leek had such a commanding lead that they could almost afford to idle to the finish in the proudly South African Nissan hardbody. Such was the fan support that TV and service crews were delayed for hours as they picked their way through the traffic jams along the route. Unfortunately, Reineke's race was run.
We started 29th this morning. We've managed to get through to second overall, again, just behind Arnes, but unfortunately there's still a gap of 32 minutes between us. And the car was going smooth, everything was going okay, there's nothing wrong. Next the moment we started smelling oil, I thought something is wrong. And then also we hear a hell of a noise into the gearbox. When we stopped, there was a hole, so something must have broke inside the gearbox and put a hole through the gearbox. So it was fruitless for us to try and reach the DSP. We were still 70 kilometers out, and I said to Robin, no proof of trying to do the 70 kilometers without oil in the gearbox, and we don't know what's wrong inside the gearbox, so we decided to retire.
A local soccer star conducted an impromptu Sunday school class amidst all the action. With day one's punches and gear selection problems now behind them, there was no stopping special vehicle category leaders John Weir-Smith and Jet Minnett in the O'Hagan's Kopanong Hotel Super Team Jimco.